Hello everybody and welcome to another something new because I can't decide what to do with my life. I am Solhomgamer who's bad at games and this is my top 10 all-time favorite games. First of all, just a little bookkeeping. Obviously this is not an extensive list as I've not played every video game ever released and have likely missed some that you may have enjoyed. Feel free to tell me your top 10 in the comments, but at the same time, please don't tell me that my list is in any way wrong or otherwise, as it's simply my opinion made of games that I would likely play over and over again. Also, I'll list what system I played the game on, but that doesn't mean the game isn't on other systems as well. I'm sure you can find that information with a short Google search. Next, I may love all of the games in a specific series, however, I'm only going to pick one from the series, but don't worry, I'll explain why I picked that one as I go over the entry. And last, the games are in the order that I currently feel are correct. All of these change over time, but in the time that I'm filming this would be the order that I feel is the most correct. So, without further ado, let's do feathers.
Number 10.
The Hobbit for Nintendo GameCube. This game is on the list because I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings, and honestly, for a collect-a-thon kind of story-driven game, the game wasn't that bad. It sticks to the chapters of the book and the generic frameworks, and while there's some janky moments and a fair bit unexpected of you to get 100% of the game, it still holds up not too bad. Controls did what they had to, the scripting lands itself in some of mine and Dead Media's favorite quotes of all time. But as for memories attached, it's the first game where I blatantly ignored my parents' rule about a specific amount of time that I was allowed to play games per day, 15 minutes, as my dad knew I was playing, but he didn't stop me, so I finished the game in my second sitting at all playing it. Overall, the game is good, and I recommend it, but it's not a game that I would pick up to play immediately after finishing, and there's also better on the list, so let's move on to one of those now.
Number 9.
Wario Land 3 for the Nintendo Game Boy Color. Who doesn't love Wario? Maybe the women of the Mushroom Kingdom, as he's canonically fat, ugly, and eats garlic as his primary food source, but hey, until we can get that sexy beast Waluigi into a game of his own, I'll take it. Out of the series, I picked this one because it is a few games deep into the series, and by now Wario has gotten into some of his iconic moves and hats and transformations and such, and the game's actually pretty fun. I'll be honest here and say that this one is on the list more as a placeholder for the whole series of Wario Land games, including GameCube's Wario World, but I don't really remember this one specifically, just that I played the series over and over as a mini-solemn. And that's why this one is where it is on the list. There are memories, it's a good game, but overall, not as memorable on its own as the others on the list.
Number 8.
I think that Dragon Quest games have a special place in everybody's heart. These games are so iconic in the lands of Nintendo's that there are now slimes from the games in other games, even in a Monopoly sim, and even in sports games. But for me, this started back when Dragon Quest was called Dragon Warrior in the Americas. This game was on the original Nintendo, and I could still hear the overworld theme in my head on Moonlight's sleepless nights. This game is honestly pretty generic for the JRPG style game, with one warrior instead of a party, and this is before they gave you options on how you leveled up, so it became kind of a grind fest at times, but honestly, still a pretty good game, and the memories here are what placed it where it is on the list. This is one of two games, along with the home arcade version of Galaga, that I remember sitting on the living room floor with my dad and watching with amazement and horror and all other ranges of emotions as he played through, explaining what he was doing so that my brother and I could understand and enjoy as well. This game is possibly one of the top reasons that I became the gamer that I am today, and so it's earned its spot on the list.
Number 7.
I figured I'd better have a shooter somewhere on the list here as well, so have Halo Reach for the Xbox 360. Okay though, seriously, this was a game that I enjoyed throwing as many rounds a night on as I could, making lasting friendships, and even rekindling a friendship that was in disrepair with Big Country himself, as well as being one of the only Halo games that I ever seriously played, or FPS games for that matter. I was very often found running around and pot-shotting dudes in the SWAT game mode, which, for the uninitiated, was a game mode where only headshots counted, and I got pretty good too. but I couldn't remember how to do it now. Even so, the game got hours out of me and fixed my relationship with Big Country, so it's gotta be on the list. Love you, buddy.
Number 6.
First game on this list that's on the PC is Might and Magic Heroes number 5. Now the number here is kind of arbitrary because the games are all more or less the same with different art and graphics each time, and as for my memory, well, I was a wee babby Solom when I was first introduced to the series, so I can't remember if it was 5 or 3 that I was introduced to, but it was definitely one of those two. As for the memory itself, this is a game I remember watching my favorite uncle play on his computer while a sun-melted action figure of Jean-Luc Picard watched us from on top of his computer monitor. I didn't understand so much, but the game looked magical, was magical, and my uncle made it magical. Fast forward some time to when my cousin Trista was watching me. She also decided to play, but she let me have a lot more input into the creatures we trained and the faction we played, etc, etc. Even still, I have trained Bub to play Heroes 7 so that we can play every now and again, and I've made some attempts to train Chewie, and used to play frequently with Big C and Fry until Fry banned me from using magic. Regardless, this series will probably always take a seat. It's just too bad that Steam can't fix the older renditions and that Ubisoft won't work on number 7.
Number 5.
Now this is one where I had some struggles figuring out where to place it on the list. Gladius for the Nintendo GameCube was an adventure as well as sort of a pseudo-RPG, as well as a guild manager, as well as a turn-based strategy. It's all of those in one, and I tell you, it was a blast to play through every time I did it. You start by picking one of 2 races, though they're kind of more like factions, and then you have to fight in gladiator combats in a turn-based strategy across the land to take the championship. Honestly, there were some balancing issues right off the bat, as the one faction started in an easier area, but a more difficult faction got access to stronger units, so I guess it kinda evened out. There's some humor to the game, such as these strong units called Samnites, Samnites, whatever. They fart to make other units run away, and I don't care, it's still fun. There's customization, some fantasy, some historical weapons and unit types that you can learn about, and you'll want to play it at least twice so that you can play either faction. Now, if Dead Media would only have stopped selling it because he hated it so much, I might still have a copy.
Number 4.
Realistically, all of the Assassin's Creed games could probably be on this list, except for Unity. But as for my rules, I had to pick one, so I picked Black Flag. Now there's a few reasons for this. The first is that I didn't want to have to pick between the 3 games to get one of the Ezio ones, and also that pirates are cool. The main character may not have been the most compelling, but he was still cool. The epic ship fights were awesome, and honestly the game gets bonus points because they took the worst part about Assassin's Creed 3. The whole game is bad, but the sailing was the worst, and they made it better. They made it work, and they made it necessary and fun. Add in some colorful characters like Blackbeard while keeping their, shall we say, loose grip on historical accuracy, and this is probably the Assassin's Creed game I'd recommend to anyone. Either that, or the 3 Assassin's Creed 2 games. Skip number 1 and number 3. Moving on.
Number 3.
Here's a deep cut for you guys. Star Tropics for the original Nintendo. This was a unique Zelda-like where the main character, Mike, was literally just going to visit his uncle and ended up fighting monsters with a yo-yo. Yes, the game came out in the 90s, why do you ask? The game had great music, played well, the puzzles were challenging, and one is even impossible without the instruction manual. Luckily, Google came to save the day with the answer for that one. The art styles were interesting, and all of the progressions felt meaningful. Honestly, this is another one I had to watch my dad play through, because it is a bit tough at some parts with some tricky hidden doors and boss fights that I distinctly remember giving me nightmares. I mean, look at this guy. He shoots his eyes at you and grabs you with grabby hands. Anyways, if you're interested in retro-style games, this is one to play. Just don't play the sequel. Ever. Just don't.
Number 2.
Now this one was kind of a two-way tie, but I think I've made the right call with Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on the N64. It's my choice for the best Zelda game. Now, I know there's going to be some who argue the merits of Twilight Princess or Breath of the Wild, but hey, Breath of the Wild I never played because I have a deep-seated hatred for weapon degrades and stamina bars in my Zelda games, and Twilight Princess honestly just starts way too slowly. Honestly, if Twilight Princess didn't start like a doped-up slug, then it'd be at the top and has replaced Ocarina on this list before, but Ocarina of Time is just so good for so many ways, including music, the characters, the gameplay, items, side quests, settings, and it doesn't have stupid arbitrary time limit that poops all over your progress on a regular basis. So representing the princess and or the guy in green depending on your troll status is Ocarina of Time.
These are the ones that didn't make the list, but I still like them, so suck on this.
Kirby and the Crystal Shards on the N64. I literally peed myself on a class trip once because I didn't want to stop playing this game. Guild Wars 2 on the PC. I never played the original, but a free-to-play MMO that stays free-to-play is a big plus from me, even though I paid for DLC on it, so it's not really free to me. Spore. This one was great and may have made the list if Maxis didn't rush it and put an arbitrary single system key on the game so that I can't access online anymore. And finally,
it's number 1!
Smite on the PC. Some of you may have seen this coming, but Smite for the PC is a free-to-play MOBA that takes away what I hated about League of Legends and the incessant clicking, as well as adding in mythology, which has always been an interest to me, with artwork and gameplay that I love. Yeah, you get a shitty community sometimes, but I think that goes for almost any game nowadays. The game may be free to play, but I'd recommend it to anyone who enjoyed it that they purchase that one-time God Pack that gives you instant access to all of the available characters, which I think has surpassed 200 now. Talk about value. And I myself have hundreds of hours in. Most of the gods are mastered, and I've spent thousands of dollars, I wish I was kidding, on the voice packs and cosmetics because frankly this game makes me so happy. I'm never going to be a Smite channel, but I'm certain the game will continue to make appearances as it's another one that Big C and I can just jump on when we're bored. So what do you think of my list? Did you make it to the end or did you rage when I rejected your favorite? Is there one on the list that you need to check out now? Tell me in the comments. While you're dinking around down there, hit that button that looks like this and maybe the one that looks like that so that YouTube can ship this video to other people. Are there other lists that you want me to make? Let me know, but otherwise, until next time, guys, bye!